In recent years, one team has dominated the sport like no other: Mercedes. Their 8-year reign as Constructors' Champions was a testament to their incredible engineering prowess and the talents of their superstar drivers. But as the 2023 season got underway, Mercedes struggled to keep up with the competition. So what went wrong? And more importantly, what are they doing to turn things around? Stay tuned to find out. Mercedes had dominated F1 since the introduction of the turbo hybrid engines in 2014, winning 8 successive constructors' titles, the first 7 of which were accompanied by drivers' crowns, 6 for Hamilton and 1 for Nico Rosberg. Going into the 2022 season, Mercedes faced stiff competition from Red Bull, who had proven to be a match for the team, as Verstappen claimed his maiden title. A new regulation was introduced at the start of the 2022 season, which was meant to provide the possibility of resetting the established pecking order. Heading into the 2022 season, Mercedes unveiled a new zero sidepod concept at pre-season testing, which was a radical departure from the more traditional designs of their rivals. It was assumed that Mercedes had once again outfoxed their competitors and would begin another period of dominance. However, it soon became clear that Mercedes had been caught out by the new regulations and was suffering more than any other team with porpoising, a bouncing phenomenon that was an unexpected consequence of the way the 2022 cars had been designed under the new rules. While just about every team suffered to some level, Mercedes' issue were the most severe and heavily impacted the performance of their W14, along with the comfort of their drivers. Mercedes struggled to keep up with Red Bull and Ferrari, who battled for wins throughout the first half of the season. Mercedes' issues were severe enough that they were clearly out of championship contention long before the campaign reached its halfway point. Despite the early struggles, Mercedes admirably improved their car, regularly outperforming Ferrari and coming close to victory on multiple occasions, before Russell finally delivered an uplifting triumph at the penultimate race of the season in Brazil. The win appeared to indicate that Mercedes had gotten on top of their issues and gave the team and their supporters optimism that 2023 would bring a return to title contention. A demoralizing start to 2023. It turned out that the relative upturn in form during the second half of the season may have been the worst thing that could have happened to Mercedes, as it was enough to convince them to stick with their much talked about zero sidepod concept. Mercedes' struggles with their zero sidepod concept began in the pre-season testing phase, with both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell experiencing issues with the car's handling and balance. These issues persisted throughout the testing period, leaving the team with concerns heading into the opening race of the season in Bahrain. Despite the concerns, the team remained optimistic that they could overcome the challenges and unlock the full potential of their new concept. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff warned that they might start the season behind Red Bull, but he was confident that the team could eventually be competitive enough to fight for victories. After pre-season testing, Russell left Bahrain to work on improving the car back at the factory in the UK. He expressed confidence that significant progress had been made, stating that the team had resolved some of the issues that they had encountered during testing. Russell said ahead of the first practice, "I think we had a really good time between the test and the race to analyze what happened. There were a few things going on with the car that we didn't quite expect, but we've been able to resolve pretty easily. We were just working in slightly the wrong window, so we'll put that change in for this weekend." However, these efforts proved to be in vain, as Mercedes' struggles continued throughout the first race weekend in Bahrain. The car's handling remained unpredictable, and both Hamilton and Russell struggled to find a comfortable balance. This ultimately led to disappointing results in qualifying and the race itself. It soon became clear to Mercedes that their zero sidepod concept was flawed, and that their hopes of competing for the 2023 championship were already in tatters. Can Mercedes turn things around? The challenge facing Mercedes in the current Formula One season is undoubtedly a significant one, but the team's engineers are renowned for their ability to turn adversity into opportunity. The suggestion that they are already looking ahead to the 2024 campaign may seem premature, but in the highly competitive world of F1, there is no time to waste. For Mercedes, the challenge is not simply to rebuild their current car, the W14, but to radically rethink their approach to F1. This may mean looking beyond their current design philosophy and embracing new technologies and approaches to car design. Sky Sports F1 reporter Karun Chandhok stated, "Mercedes have got to think about, listen, do we throw away and knock down the first 2 years that we've built and build 3 tiers in the same time that everyone else is going to build just the last tier for next year? And the decision will have to be made now, because the architecture and the layout and the concept of the car will will get signed off by April for all the teams. So in the next couple of races, they have to make the decision on whether to abandon the concept and go with a whole new concept for next year. The noises coming from Mercedes post-Bahrain suggest that significant change is coming. In his GP recap, trackside engineering director Andrew Shovlin hinted the team might finally conform with, or at least move towards, the more traditional side pod design that Red Bull have been so successful with. Shovlin said, "Given the gaps to the front, of course, we are going to look at bigger departures and more radical changes. But those changes take time to turn into a faster solution in the wind tunnel. You can't do them overnight. There is quite a lot of development that you've got to do around any sort of big change in geometry in that area. Of course, we are looking at where we can improve the car. We are looking for potential to develop, and you will see visible changes coming on the car over the next few races." Meanwhile, Mercedes also sent an open letter to their fans, which said they were working urgently and calmly to build our recovery plan, but would not panic, make knee-jerk reactions, or look for scapegoats. However, we are beginning to see some improvement from Mercedes. At the chaotic Australian Grand Prix, which lasted well over 2.5 hours and involved 3 red flags, 3 safety cars, and 4 starts or restarts, eventually finished with Lewis Hamilton in second place behind Red Bull's Max Verstappen. That the double world champion was still within sight of Hamilton at the finish line was admittedly only because the race finished behind a safety car, but Hamilton did manage to keep Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso behind him for the entire race. An achievement which did not seem feasible in Saudi Arabia 2 weeks ago. Mercedes' pace was genuine. Hamilton's teammate George Russell would almost certainly have finished on the podium too, but for some rotten luck amidst the chaos. After the race, Hamilton said, "If we continue to work together, we can definitely fight the Ferraris and the Red Bulls. And the battle's really with Fernando right now." Could we say Mercedes are back? Too early to say. Their performance could have been boosted by the nature of the Albert Park track. However, irrespective of the performance in Australia, Mercedes are still sticking to their plan of making changes to the W14. What changes would Mercedes make to the W14? Mercedes' decision to abandon their long-standing zero-pod concept is a bold move that is aimed at unlocking more performance from the W14. Despite the uphill battle ahead, this change is expected to give drivers Lewis Hamilton and George Russell the confidence boost they need to perform at their best. Speaking to the press over the weekend, team principal Toto Wolff acknowledged the significant progress that the team has made. He said it's a big step in relative performance to where we are even now. The kind of gains that are coming in our R&D and in aero are much bigger than we've had over a long time. Wolff explained that the change in perspective was due to the team's learnings from the Bahrain test and race. He said there was no step back. On the contrary, there were immediately 2 steps forward. The team's newfound confidence is expected to reflect in their performance on the track even before the upgrades have been brought in. While most of the buzz around Mercedes' concept change revolves around the side pods, a significant portion of the changes come from the floor of the car, which creates the ground effect downforce. Wolff explained, "I think the biggest change that we made is actually looking at whether we want to have the car set up in its sweet spot. We've been too low last year and we've been too high this year, and now we believe we know what to land on." Wolff emphasized that changes will be seen in the bodywork of the car as it works as a full system, but he remains cautious about being too optimistic. He concluded, "So I don't want to sound too foolishly optimistic, but at least we see low-hanging fruit with things that are encouraging." Overall, Mercedes' decision to abandon their long-standing concept is a significant move that highlights their commitment to continuous improvement and innovation at Formula One. What's your thought about this? Will these upgrades bring about a drastic change in performance? Let us know in the comment section below. That will be all for today's video. Thanks for staying tuned. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you can always get to watch more videos like this. See you in the next video.